All right, let's just dive right into this explainer. Today we're unpacking a deeply unsettling account straight from our source material. And I gotta warn you, this is a step-by-step true highway encounter that will absolutely make you rethink ever driving alone at night. If you've ever driven down an empty road and felt that sudden, inexplicable chill, well, this breakdown is going to resonate with you on a very primal level.
So, picture this, the absolute crushing isolation of Highway 44 at midnight. According to the source, there is zero surrounding light out there. It's just a dense, suffocating jungle pressing right in on this trembling asphalt road. The only sound is the heavy roar of a truck engine. The driver, Kamlesh, is gripping the wheel and his eyes are just burning with this incredible weight of exhaustion. You know the feeling, right? That kind of sheer fatigue where your mind just kind of blurs the line between reality and nightmare.
Okay. Let's get into Section 1, Midnight on Highway 44.
Kamlesh is driving when suddenly he swerves. Out of nowhere, a white figure is standing dead center in the glow of his headlights. He slams on the brakes, the screech of the tires violently tears through the silence of the jungle, and his truck jerks to a halt literally inches from where this figure stood. A drop of sweat rolls down his temple. But when he peers out into the dark, there's absolutely nothing there. Empty road. He hits the dashboard, desperately trying to comfort his tired mind, whispering to himself, "Don't be scared, Kamlesh. You aren't alone. Your truck is with you."
Which brings us to Section 2, the unwanted passenger.
So just as he's about to lock himself safely inside his cabin, a woman's voice completely shatters the silence, coming from the dark rear of the truck. He freezes. Looking back into the dim red glow of his taillights, he sees this blurry silhouette. He immediately tells her to leave, citing local legends of ghosts who haunt these roads. But she claims her feet are blistered from walking. She says she just wants to reach her children in the city. And the source notes that her voice carries this incredibly deep, piercing pain.
Now, what's really interesting here is the intense psychological trap he's suddenly in. You've got this battle between Kamlesh's primal survival instinct and her heartbreaking manipulation. He throws the folklore right at her, saying, "People say your feet are backward, that you aren't what you seem." But she counters with pure human desperation. She says, "If I were a ghost, would I speak to you so politely? Are you cruel enough to keep a mother from her children?" As she steps closer, wearing this old cotton sari, the source mentions an unnatural freezing cold washes completely over Kamlesh. Well, his empathy actually wins out, and he agrees to take her, but with exactly one strict condition. She must sit in the back under the tarpaulin and absolutely never come near his cabin. He specifically orders her not to even look toward the front. When her village arrives, she's supposed to knock on the metal and he'll stop. She just nods silently, her eyes strangely gleaming in the pitch black, and she walks to the back without making a single sound with her footsteps. Let's move into Section 3, a tragic confession. As Kamlesh drives off, the atmosphere just thickens with dread. The physical environment actually begins to warp. The truck suddenly drags heavily, almost as if it's carrying an impossible burden. Desperate to drown out the silence, Kamlesh flips on the radio, but it fails, outputting only this sinister hissing sound. And then, agonizing, spine-chilling cries start echoing from his unseen passenger in the back.
Terrified that he might literally drive off the road from sheer panic, he slips the back window open just slightly to try and calm her down. He asks her why she's crying. She stops instantly. She moves closer in the dark and shares this tragic confession about a husband who brutally abused her because she couldn't bear children. She says he told her a woman who cannot give a child has no right to live in this world, pushing her into a living hell. Kamlesh, feeling this huge wave of deep sympathy, tells her that her husband was wrong, that humanity is the greatest religion, and he promises to get her to her destination safely. He comforts her, and he's feeling this false sense of security, until she suddenly screams, with ear-piercing volume, to stop. Kamlesh slams on the brakes, but when he looks around, there is no village. It's just an empty stretch of desolate jungle. She tells him everyone calls this Sati Valley and claims she is a daughter of the mountains, unafraid of the dark. She steps off the truck and vanishes instantly, right into the thick fog.
And that triggers Section 4, the endless loop. This is where the supernatural trap fully springs shut. Kamlesh drives off, relieved to be alone, but still kind of haunted by her sad story. But then his headlights illuminate a broken signpost, Sati Valley. His heart drops. He accelerates 80, 90, over 100 kilometers per hour. The engine is just screaming. He pushes the accelerator to the floor, desperate to leave this nightmare behind.
But then, bathed in the high beams, the exact same broken sign appears again. Sati Valley. His mind completely breaks. He swerves violently, loses control on the wet dirt, and crashes head-on into a massive boulder.
Section 5. A desperate call.
Somehow, Kamlesh miraculously survives, but look at the sheer isolation he's facing out there. At 2 a.m., he's thrown from the crushed truck. The front is completely destroyed, smoke is pouring from the engine. Bleeding and desperate, he tries to wave down a speeding car at 2:10 a.m., waving his arms frantically, but it speeds right past and knocks him into the dirt. By 2:30 a.m., he stands dead center in the road for an approaching truck, but it just blasts a long, terrifying horn, speeds up, and nearly crushes him. Finally, abandoned and trembling, at 2:45 a.m. he uses his phone's weak light as a last hope and makes a desperate, terrified call to his boss.
Breathless, literally choking on his own fear, Kamlesh spills everything: the woman, the impossible looping road, the crash at Sati Valley. Now, to organize a rescue, the boss stays surprisingly calm. He instructs Kamlesh to document the wreckage, saying, "Keep your head cool. Take photos of the truck and the location and send them to me immediately." So Kamlesh gratefully does this in the pitch dark, using the flash, sending the photos off over this weak cellular connection, just wondering how anyone could possibly reach him in this remote wasteland.
Which leads us to the terrifying climax. Section 6. The final photograph.
Miles away in the safety of his home, the boss is carefully looking through these images one by one. Suddenly, his eyes lock onto the final photo. He immediately calls Kamlesh back, and that calm demeanor, it is entirely gone. In an absolute panic, he commands Kamlesh to abandon the truck immediately. "To hell with the truck," he yells. "Run for your life. And most importantly, whether you hear someone call your name or hear crying, do not look back even once."
And here is the horrifying twist, revealed 2 days later. Kamlesh ran to a nearby village without ever looking back. When he finally met his boss in person, his boss pulled out his phone with trembling hands and showed Kamlesh that final photograph. The picture showed the crushed cabin of the truck, and sitting directly in the passenger seat, right next to where Kamlesh had been driving all night, was a strange, smiling girl. It was the spirit of the woman. She hadn't been sitting in the back of the truck at all.
It really goes to show, some roads carry more dread than actual destinations, and not every traveler you meet is human. The source closes by noting that Kamlesh never ever drove that route again, and to this day a cold shiver runs down his spine on empty roads. So the next time you're driving completely alone at night and you feel a sudden, inexplicable chill in the passenger seat, you have to ask yourself one chilling question: who is riding with you in the dark?